Whenever I had multiples of the West End Games role-playing miniatures, I had a decision to make. Were they army builders, in which case I was going to paint them all exactly alike simultaneously, or was I free to customize them and do things with them? For example, I painted one of these Boba Fett's to look like the 4-inch tall Kenner action figure, and one to look like the 15-inch tall large-size Kenner action figure, or doll. Likewise, I had two Bosks, so I painted one to look like Bosk and one to look like the character I call Crocker from the Cantina. I'm pretty sure these guys are both painted simultaneously with custom action figures. I'll have to haul those out and compare. But back to the miniatures for which I had multiples, here are 4 astromechs that I painted distinctly from one another. From the Mos Eisley case, you've got R2-D2 and the one now known as R2-A5, I believe. They both have a sand-colored base. And for the piratey-looking R2-X2, I gave him a black base, while the dirty Dagobah R2 got this sort of gray-green base. Likewise for the protocol droids. C-3PO has a sandy Tatooine base, K-3PO has a white Hoth base, and the silver one, I think that's U-3PO, I gave him a black base, as I did with most of my Cloud City folks. Now, hopefully somebody out there, probably Tolga, is sitting there wondering, wait, why does he have only 3 protocol droids when he had 4 astromechs? He previously told us that he bought multiples of a set that contained the 2 of them together and Luke Skywalker. So where's the missing 3PO? That is an excellent question, and is actually the planned topic for this video. Today we will discuss using every part of the Buffalo. No way would I have the eyesight or fine motor control to do this these days, but at the time, I could actually see well enough to cut the blaster out of Luke's hand and give it to other characters. For instance, this werewolf, which wasn't even a Star Wars role-playing miniature. I just put a blaster in its hand to make it look more Star Warsy. But then, what are you going to do with a Luke Skywalker that no longer is holding a blaster? Another custom that I did was to turn an extra Ben Kenobi into his brother, Owen Lars. I mean, that's what we thought at the time, because that's what the Return of the Jedi novelization said. Even though in a side-by-side comparison, it is obvious that's a Ben Kenobi, and it's obvious that he was holding something in his 2 hands. I did cut a channel between his 2 fists, so hopefully it would look less like there was an object there. Added an accusatory finger like he's pointing at one of the Jawas, asking them what kind of crap they're trying to pull this time. And I even cut his head off, slightly repositioned it, and glued it back on so that it looked like he was actually making eye contact with whatever that finger was pointing at. And then use every part of the Buffalo. Take the lightsaber blade you cut off of Ben and give it to the Luke that's not holding a blaster. I also cut the lightsaber hilt off his belt, because that logically wouldn't be there if he's holding it in his other hand, and I repositioned his arm slightly, just to make him look a little more distinct from the one holding the blaster. But getting back to Bosk and Boba Fett for a second, these guys were 2 of the original 6 bounty hunters that we saw in The Empire Strikes Back aboard the bridge of Darth Vader's Star Destroyer Executor, or as my neighbor Craig used to call it back in 1980, the Executor, which, considering he was 6 years old, that's still some pretty precocious sight reading. I mean, to mispronounce a word means you've only ever seen it in print and read it. He'd never heard anybody say it before. Now, we knew who Boba Fett was from the holiday special. We knew who Bosk was from a secret mail-away figure offer.
Check specially marked packages for details on how to get the secret figure. New Bosk, Alien Bounty Hunter. Not available in stores yet.
And when you actually received your Bosk in the mail, it came with a piece of paper that talked about yet another bounty hunter, a droid. Well, that turned out to be IG-88. So left to right, we meet Dingar for the first time in the movie, IG-88, Boba Fett, Bosk. Then this character at the time was still called Zuckuss, and the one on the far right was still called 4LOM.
Now you can get this new 4LOM action figure free.
Their names got reversed later, and obviously it makes more sense that the alien is called Zuckuss and the robot is called 4LOM, but at the time, historically, we did not know any better. And just to confuse my brain even worse, the West End Games box set of bounty hunters called the Gand alien neither 4LOM nor Zuckuss, but Shrike. And that's not even the weirdest part. The set didn't include all 6 of the Empire Strikes Back Executor Bridge bounty hunters. It only contained 5 of them. And if you looked at the box art with the great Ralph McQuarrie painting, you would assume Dingar was the one not in the set. But no. The set did include Dengar, but was missing the robot Zuckuss. Even though the set has spaces for 10 characters, they filled them up with characters like Boosh, okay, that's a bounty hunter, Barada, but they called him Weequay, a rebel merc and a rebel scout, and a female bounty hunter named Zardra that I guess they made up for the game. But I was not going to let something like the fact that Bob and Julie had neglected to sculpt us a Zuckuss stop me from having all 6. All the ingredients were right there. Take the body of C-3PO, the head of 4LOM, and the rifle of IG-88. Glue them all together, slap the right coat of paint on it, and you've got yourself a Zuckuss. Mind you, it mangled IG-88's arm pretty badly to get that gun out of his hand, so I just glued it to his side and painted him white for the character in the smelting room at Cloud City that I've always called IG-77. There were no Ugnaughts, so I really didn't need him, but use every part of the buffalo. And whereas most West End Games miniatures collectors have 5 of the bounty hunters from The Empire Strikes Back, I got 6. Occasionally, the Army Builder sets came with 1 of one figure and 2 of the other. Case in point, this Wookiee set came with Chewbacca and 2 of these Ralph McQuarrie-style tunic-wearing Wookiees, which were actually pretty faithful sculptures of the sketch. Wookiees aren't like Jawas or Sand People, so you wouldn't paint them the same, so I gave one of them gray fur like Chewbacca's father, Itchy. By the way, that Zardra figure right in the face looked an awful lot like a classmate of mine named Tracy. And since the character was totally made up for the game, it's not like there was any photo reference I could go by to make sure I got the colors right, so naturally I just gave her the same eye color and hair color as Tracy. I even put her in a pink tunic because Tracy always wore this pink sweater to high school. Remember the Rebel character set where I got Phil Odendron? It also included a character called The Kid, who, judging solely from the name and the floppy Tatooine hat, was possibly inspired by Jim the Starkiller Kid from one of the earliest Marvel Star Wars comics. Since the mini was sculpted so much shorter than all the rest of them, he strongly made me think of the way Craig looked when we were kids, 4 years younger than me, even though by 1994, I was 24 and Craig was 20 and he was taller than me. So similarly as to what I'd done with Zardra, I also painted the kid to look like Craig. He's got freckles on his face and he even has a slingshot in his back pocket, although Bob and Julie sculpted that. I didn't just paint it on. Zardra was also available in the Bounty Hunters 2 3-pack with Dengar and Bosk. So since I had an extra one and I had all those extra Lukes, I did an interesting swaparoo between their weapons. Zardra became a character from Jabba's palace that I only knew at the time as Blue Streak because of the blue streak in her hair. The skirt was made of paper, and then I took the skiff pole that came with her and gave it to Luke. I altered his hair, I altered his skin color, I gave him a mustache, and I turned him into a random background skiff guard from Jabba's palace. Admittedly, you can't always swap all the parts between 2 figures. Case in point, when I made the 3PO into a Zuckuss, I still had the 3PO head left over. But you remember that Wookiee 3-pack? That gave me an extra Chewbacca. And as it turns out, there weren't a lot of characters made for Cloud City. Just Lando, Leia, and Lobot. So I took that extra Chewie, cut out his crossbow, gave him a blaster E11, and I put C-3PO on his back. And that allowed me to really flesh out the scene. You had 4.5 heroes instead of just 3. But wait, you ask, you only had a 3PO head. What about the other body parts? The foot came from, I believe, a Luke Skywalker. And that arm? That's not C-3PO's arm. That's yet another arm from those Warhammer skeletons that I bought to use as Jason and the Argonauts and also as Owen and Beru's skeletal remains. Use every part of the buffalo. Thanks for watching.